You're listening to the Business and Life Podcast, where 7 days a week, proven entrepreneurs share their success stories, failures, and give you true value on how you can build a great business and an awesome life. With your host, Mike Olivas.
Welcome back, Business and Life. Today we'll be interviewing David Wood. David is a leading coach, author, speaker, and tough conversations ninja. David left his cushy Park Avenue job 20 years ago to build the world's largest coaching business. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, so tell our listeners something interesting about yourself and also where you're calling in from today.
Did you say something interesting?
Yeah.
Well, I used to be a church organist when I was 15 years old, and I have flown solo in a paraglider over the Himalayas.
Oh, wow, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. And I'm from Australia, but I live now in Boulder, Colorado.
Do you ski?
I snowboard. I haven't been in quite a while, so I think probably next winter is when I'll really buy the equipment, get a ski pass, and actually do the whole thing.
Do it. You got to do it. I love it. I'm an avid boarder, travel around, hitting mountains as much as I possibly can. Was in Utah for a couple of weeks this year, and was in Boulder, Steamboat, did quite a bit last year. Colorado world, it's where the snow is, so you're in good shape.
Yep.
Give us some details about David Wood, what your company does, what value it brings to the marketplace.
Well, I'm a high performance coach. I used to be a consultant to some big companies in New York like Ford and Sony Music. And that was at the age of 23. I'm 51 now, and I quit that job because I discovered the world of personal growth. And I realized I was missing out on vulnerability, deep connection, how to really influence people, how to communicate. So, and I was a consultant. Like, I was good at my job, and I could have kept doing that and maybe been partner, but I found this whole other world. And so what I do now is I help people. The people who just want business coaching don't usually come to me. There are plenty of business coaches. And the people who just want to work on their life, work-life balance, their communication, their relationships, their wellness, they don't usually come to me because there are plenty of coaches doing that. But I'm one of those rarer coaches that, because of my business background and now my personal growth background, can straddle both of those areas. And we look at the whole of life, because the way you communicate with your kids and your partner and your friends flows through to how you communicate with your customers and your boss and your coworkers. So I don't separate the two. It's like, what's going on this week? How can we make your life and work better? That's me.
I love that. You're speaking my language, business and life, right? And I'm with you there on the coaching angle. I do a few engagements just because I don't have the time, because I have my company still. But when it's all said and done, business and life, and those two coming together, tell me how you feel entrepreneurs out there that are listening struggle the most with as you see within your clientele. Like, what is the most difficult? If there's any similarities, if you will, like that you've seen similarities on, hey, we're struggling with this specifically. Is it more business? Is it more life?
Yeah. Well, one thing that many of my clients have been struggling with is focus.
Yeah.
Let's say 200 years ago, if you wanted to chop down a tree, you probably grab an axe, you walk outside, and you chop down a damn tree. That's pretty simple. You're not going to be interrupted by the mailman coming for a letter and a whole bunch of people dropping by to visit. You don't have a phone. You don't have Facebook to check. It's crazy today, and everything that's calling for our attention. It's a wonder we get anything done. So one of the things I've helped a lot of my clients with is focus, how to double their productivity. It's not that complex. It's not that easy either. I give them the steps, and then they fall down, they get back up again, they try it again, they get a little better. And usually it takes about a month, and then they're getting twice as much done and feeling better about themselves. And a second area that I tend to work a lot on is tough conversations. And for some people, it occurs like, yeah, I've got this. I don't know how to tell my boss that he's abrasive, and I'm the HR director. How do I do that? or I think the company's got the wrong policy, or I don't like how this coworker speaks to me. How do I bring that up? So I do a lot of work around that, but also the tough conversations that don't appear as tough conversations. It just might be, I have a problem with this person. All right, well, let's look at what that conversation could look like. And I help them craft it, and they go and they have it and they transform that relationship. So I that's my specialty. I love speaking your truth. And sometimes that's a tough conversation, and sometimes it turns out to be way easier than you thought.
Yeah, I think that's very powerful, and I appreciate you sharing that, David. As so many people, whether employees, entrepreneurs, pushing them to have more tough conversations creates more clarity and transparency in the workplace, in their mind, right? And they just feel like we're moving forward, I'm assuming, on many levels. Why do you think people are afraid to have tough conversations?
Oh, there are good reasons.
Yeah.
There are very good reasons.
They don't get fired.
Yeah. So the first is fear of loss. I'm worried that I'll get fired, my partner will break up with me. Also on the micro level, I had a guy who didn't show up for a Zoom call that we had, and I felt disrespected. And it's like, how do you, if I bring it up, maybe he's going to call me oversensitive, or he's going to think I'm a jerk and just tell people, don't hang out with that guy. So there's fear of loss, and there's also fear of discomfort. Having a tough conversation is usually vulnerable. That's why it appears tough. I'm going to expose my underbelly here by revealing how I'm feeling and hoping this person wants to help out and come to the party. And the third reason that we don't have these conversations is because we weren't trained on how to do it. And if you have it incorrectly, you could make things worse. So it makes a lot of sense that you may not want to hold someone accountable for being on time, or tell an employee that their performance needs to improve, because if you don't come about it the right way, it could be a train wreck. And which is why I came up with a model after doing this so many times. And for 20 years, I've had 20 years of practice in this. I came up with a simple 4-step model. I call the model the CASE model, CASE, because that'll help people remember the steps, which are, in a nutshell, clarify the situation. Don't go in there without being clear on what's going on. Ask permission to have the conversation, share the issue, and then inquire into their world to find out how is it for them. And maybe they have a better idea than what you came up with. So the simple CASE model will change. It's a total game changer when it comes to you transforming your relationships and being a leader and bringing up some of the issues that they may be too scared to bring up because they weren't taught how to do it.
Yeah, you're right. That's great. CASE, clarify, ask permission, share issue, inquire.
Inquire into their world.
Awesome. I love that. In your experience, why do you think a lot of entrepreneurs out there fail?
Why do they fail?
Or why do they decide to give up, if you will? Because I know the word failure can be a little bit misconstrued on a lot of people. Failure way to success. I get it. But so tell me why you think a lot of people, in your opinion, out there that start a business decide to just throw in the towel.
Well, firstly, in my experience, it's really hard being an entrepreneur. So I think let's acknowledge that.
100%. Yeah.
I was once sitting with a bunch of very successful people at the home of John Gray, who wrote a little book called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And he said to us all, I acknowledge you for everything you do, because it's so hard to be an entrepreneur. And I'd never heard anybody say it, and particularly someone so successful. And I patted myself on the back. So firstly, let's acknowledge that. There's a lot of competition, and there are so many systems to set up and learn. I've got to learn about bookkeeping. I've got to learn about marketing. I've got to learn about sales. I've got to learn about hiring. I've got to learn about systems themselves. How do I document things, and how do I create reproducible things? If I've got a product, that product has to be amazing. So now I'm dealing with production, or if it's a service product, I'm doing research and development to create the best product I can. It's huge. And to expect one person to be good at all this is kind of silly, but we try and we go in and do it. So I think that alone is a reason for a lot of people to fail or a lot of people to give up. Now, I thought this was a very good and very simple book by Seth Godin called The Dip. And I don't read a lot of books like that, but it was so easy. And basically, when you start something like a business, or it could be an MBA, or just any kind of project, you're going to go through a dip, which is the place where it looks really hard, it is really hard, and you're not getting any results. You're in that investment stage. You might be investing a ton of money, a ton of time, and a ton of emotion. And when you go through that stage, the question is, do you have the resources that it's going to take to get through that dip to the other side where all the goodies lie? And an example of this is when I started studying to be an actuary, which for those who don't know is crazy hard to qualify. And it's someone who studies statistics, financial flows going 100 years into the future, probability. I didn't know how deep the dip was. I didn't know that the average time to qualify is about 10 years. That's an average. And I didn't know that I would study for a whole year, like to the point where I'd say no to social engagements because I had to study for a year and then sit a 6-hour exam. There was a 100% exam. It wasn't spread out over the year. I didn't know that my hand would cramp up with fear and that if I failed, I'd have to study for a whole other year, and that there were at least 4 of those exams. And I didn't know that if I quit halfway through, I'd get nothing. You don't get half the salary for being half an actuary.
Yeah.
You have to go all, it's like being half a doctor, right? So that was a horrendous dip, and so many people try to stay through it, and then eventually after 6, 7, 8 years, they just give up. So had I known the extent of the dip, I probably would have still gone into it because my ego was driving me. But get clear on the dip before you go in, and then stay the course if you can. But you've also got to know, wait, is this just a dip and I'm going to come through the other side, and you have some faith? Or is this really not a moneymaker? Do people really not like my product? Am I really, like, for me, am I really not that good a coach or not that good a speaker? Should I get out of this instead of doing 2 more years of this dip and go to something else where I do have the strength? So I constantly make that evaluation in my business, even now, because I'm rebuilding my business after letting everything go several years ago. And it's slower than I thought. And I have to be like, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right marketing method? And do I have faith that this is right? And so far, I do have faith and I keep going. But I'm willing to pivot at any point if I think that there's a better way, or even a better model, or even a better business. I might be willing to pivot.
What's happening, Life Nation? Michael Levis here. This is a time to do the right thing, not the profitable thing. I'm giving away COVID-19 business strategy sessions for free. I promise to give you my honest advice and coach you on a strategy that I feel would be best for the longevity of your business. I'm not asking you for your money, but in the interest of being able to help as many people as I can, I am asking you to be ready with your 1 to 2 specific questions so we can jump right into it. Go to michaellevis.com/coaching and simply schedule a call on my calendar. That's MIKEOLIVAS.com/coaching. After 20 years, how many times have you pivoted? Have you tried to niche down more? For example, broad sense, business life coach, or focus now, high performance coach, right? How long did that take for you to realize like you wanted to focus on one specific niche, David?
I love that. So the question is, how many times have I pivoted?
Yeah.
And what did it take to get here? Well, I started as an actuary and stayed pretty solid on that for 5 or 6 years. And that was a consulting job. And then I pivoted temporarily to being an entertainer. So I got singing lessons and I went and played guitar for pubs and parties and even on national TV. So that was a pivot for about a year and a bit. And then I started coaching. And I've largely stuck to coaching for the last 20 something years. It was 1998 that I started, but I made some pivots within that. Initially, I was just coaching anyone on everything. And then I had a lot of coaches coming to me saying, how do you do that? How do you build your business? So I pivoted to coaches, and I spent 20 years serving coaches. Now, there were some sub branches, like I wrote a book and I went and did speaking on stage, and I did digital marketing. So there was actually a bit of a pivot, slow pivot to digital marketing, where I sold products, CDs, DVDs, books to coaches, and I let go of all my one-on-one coaching. So that was a bit of a pivot. And then after I let everything go, I had to reinvent myself, and I decided to focus on people I really enjoy working with, which is the high performers. The people are already successful in many areas. And so that's been my focus now for the last 2.5 years, but it took a couple of years to get clear that that's who I want to help. And then my marketing method, I pivoted on the marketing methods. Initially, I thought I'll use my goodwill and my contacts, my database. And so I called a bunch of those people. I think that was useful, but it didn't generate many clients at all. So then I pivoted to speaking. I'll go and speak on stages. And then someone said, well, why don't you do podcast interviews? You can speak from home. I was like, okay, that sounds really good. So I pivoted to podcast interviews, and last year I did 75 interviews. So awesome. That's the current method, and I don't see a pivot anytime soon. I think I'm going to, and then I launched my own podcast. So I think I'm going to keep on this track, and now it looks like some speaking opportunities are coming up, which was part of the plan out of the podcast interviews.
Right.
So I haven't had to go and chase the speaking opportunities from nothing.
Right.
Do the podcast and let the speaking opportunities come out of the connections.
That's
and
right.
That seems to be working really well.
Yeah, it's very powerful. It's a definitely very powerful medium to be able to get, because who's listening to the podcast, right? Where are you adding yourself in terms of the value that I know our listeners are going to get and that might need speakers or high performance coaching? And I asked that question because it's rhetorical for me, but I also want to make sure that the listeners understand that pivoting is the norm. If you're an aspiring entrepreneur and you think that this is my product or service and this is going to be my gold for the next 20 years, I want you to know that it evolves. It evolves as you evolve, right? And I think that, David, you probably started doing things like you like to work with high performance coaches, likely because you guys have a lot in common, maybe, or you've done the grind for so many years that you get now what high performance is and what it takes to be a high performance type of person based off of making sure that you're focused on productivity, not just activity, like a lot of us entrepreneurs have done for many years, especially at the start of it. But starting as an actuary, then coaching, then rock banding it for a year, and then coaching again, then coaching coaches, which I think is awesome. Now to high performance. Tell me why you really are enjoying working with, specifically, you mentioned it earlier, but with the high performance, maybe more detail, with the more high performance people out there, because there's some listening that are current entrepreneurs that likely can still use the focus aspect of it.
Yeah, well, here's why I like working with high performers. They're doing great stuff, and we get to celebrate a lot of successes. Now, I've spent a lot of years working with people who are struggling. And part of the issue is I'm not always confident that I can help them break free. Now, it has happened. There was one woman who was really struggling. She couldn't leave the house. She was so worried, and she was very poor. And I said, look, I could take your money, but there's a course that costs way less than me and might bust you out of your patents, or I could find another coach that's cheaper. And she said, no, I really want it to be you. So I took her money, and I was really worried that I wouldn't be able to come through, because sometimes when people have got 7 or 8 things going wrong in their life, it's a long, slow road. But she was like a miracle case. She ended up meeting a guy and getting married and came out of her shell. So that was rewarding, but I don't think it's my sweet spot.
Sure.
I like to work with people who are flying high in many areas, and maybe they're struggling in one, like maybe they don't know how to speak to their kid, or maybe their relationship's not too well, or maybe they're doing well at work, but there are often fires they got to put out, like a lot of tough conversations. It's fun for me to work with those people. They're coachable, they listen, they go and they take action. I've got a vice president at Warner Brothers right now. She's so capable, and sometimes she's so close to it that it's hard for her to see a way in. And so she's like, how would I handle this? And like, I'll float 3 ideas, and she's like, okay, I like that second one. I'm going to go and do it. So that's fun. I've got another client. She's so switched on. She's on fire, and she just sent me a text. I'm on fire. That is all. Carry on.
I love it. That's awesome.
How much fun is that?
How great does that make you feel? I love those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't mean these high performers don't crash.
Of course not.
She actually crashed this year hard because her fiance broke up with her. And so for 2 months, I just held space while she went through the emotions and reinforced for her that this is okay and this is what's meant to happen. Go easy on yourself. And now she's come back up again. That's fun for me to work with people who just intrinsically like to achieve. They're good at it, and they're doing some really cool things in the world, particularly if there's a non-profit component, or they like to give a lot of money to charity. They're doing good in some way. That's a dream for me to work with those people.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I've noticed, even in myself, like that's one of the biggest missing pieces sometimes is that giving aspect. Personally, I think there's so many business, and even I get coaches, even though I help others as well, that there's an outside looking in approach, and I'll push coaching as a general, not me, not David Wood, anybody, from a general perspective. It's the outside looking up in approach is so important because you're so embedded in your own company and your own business and your own world and your own life that you just can't see it. You're blind to the outside looking in approach. And it really, I pay for it, top dollar for it if I have to, because I respect that relationship, right? It's hard to see. You can't see the outside looking in, and it's so
That's
important.
well said. You can't read the label on the jar from the inside of the jar.
That's right.
And I've been saying this for 20 years, but I just coached somebody on approaching Facebook groups and maybe becoming like a sponsor of the group, because it's not always easy to go to a thriving, huge group and then go and promote your stuff. They don't want that. They want to promote their own stuff. And I said to a client, if I was you and I was doing it, I might reach out to the admins and offer to gift them a coaching session so that they get an experience of what you do, and say, I see this as an investment in our relationship. And if you give them a coaching session and get to know them, they might then be open to you providing content occasionally into the group. And I thought, that's a great idea. I've been wanting to approach Facebook groups, but I never, ever saw that idea until I was coaching somebody else. So yeah, just the fact of having a coach and going into that space where you're both looking at your life and your business, things are going to come out that would not have come out without that.
100%. That's great advice for those listening. Like I know you got some light bulbs going for those guys listening on being a part of other groups and showing value in a different community. And that people start knocking on your door. right? Especially when you're just giving out some of your knowledge that you already have, you're an expert in. How are you currently building the life that you want to live? And how have you built the life that you want to live?
I like that question. Well, firstly, my friends are amazing. So whatever I've done in the past 51 years to be in touch with this group of amazing people, I feel privileged. And that's part of having an amazing life, I think, is having really good friends. And I suspect one way that I've created that is with my authenticity and my honesty. I express myself. And sometimes I'll reach out to someone. Like, there's one guy, really good friend of mine. I stalked him. I was like, I want to be friends with this guy. And I made an active effort. And eventually over time, we became lifelong friends. So that's one thing. Secondly, I created this business for myself where since 1990, I have been able to work wherever I want to. I live wherever I want to live in the world because I work from home. I choose my own hours. And I've been privileged to do that for 20 something years, which is pretty amazing. I have that
awesome.
flexibility. And I've chosen Boulder, Colorado out of anywhere in the world, which has an amazing community. So again, that comes back to the friends. I get to live somewhere where I'm around people that I respect and admire and love. This is my clan. So that's another point about creating a life that I love. I traveled for a year and a half recently looking for a home base. And I realized one thing missing for me is I really needed a nest. I needed to know where my socks are. I needed to cultivate a community of friends again. I needed to find out where the salsa class was, where the ultimate frisbee was. I needed to set up an exercise regime. So now I've settled in Boulder. It was expensive because traveling is pretty cheap if you stay with friends. But now I'm paying rent. I bought a car. And I got a puppy.
Awesome.
So I live now in the mountains overlooking this beautiful valley in Colorado. So now I have a beautiful home environment. I have a puppy, which makes a big difference to my life. And I have a career that I love. I love expressing myself on podcasts like this and interviewing people myself. And just yesterday, I rewrote the Tough Conversations 4-step blueprint, which is exciting to me.
Awesome.
And then edited a speech I gave to a mastermind. I'm going to publish that. That's fun for me. So that's how I've created a life. Oh, plus, now that you got me on a roll.
Yeah.
The health aspect. I've struggled with health issues for years. And I've done so much to invest in my health. I mean, right here, I've got a green smoothie for those who can see the video. I have a green smoothie almost every day. I exercise almost every day. And I go and do therapy with mental health practitioners and I do yoga. So I do all the practices I can so that my health is the best that I can make it. And I think all of these things go into me having a life that I'm feeling very happy and grateful for right now.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that. And I appreciate you sharing deeply, like just that you're excited about it. Sounds like you have a lot of great things, obviously moving forward for you, David. Where can people find you so they can connect with you?
They can go to playforreal.life. I believe we're playing a game in life, but we're playing it like it matters, ideally. So playforreal.life, and it's not a .com. And what you can do at that link, there are 3 offers I have for you. One, you can download the 4-step Tough Conversations blueprint, which is wonderful to have in your back pocket. And it includes a worksheet that you can use on any issue that's bothering you with somebody and get clarity, whether or not you decide to have the conversation. You can also request a discovery session with me. And if you qualify for the session, I don't charge for it because it's how I find the right people to work with long term. We'll create a life and work plan for you. And if it looks like something you can do on your own, great, go do it and keep in touch. Let me know how it goes. If it looks like coaching would have a huge impact, we'll talk about setting up a coaching structure for you. And the third offer at that same link, Mike, is I'd love you to join my podcast. If you want to listen to Tough Conversations with David Wood, come over and join me there. And that's all at playforreal.life.
Awesome. David, thank you so much for your time. And we appreciate all the knowledge bombs you just dropped for everybody today.
Yeah, my pleasure, Mike. Thank you.
Life Nation, you got to remember that in order for things to change, you must change. And in order for things to get better, you must get better. You just got better by hanging out with me, Michael Libas, and the Business and Life Nation. So come back tomorrow because I'm here dropping sound bombs 7 days a week, baby. If you'd like to subscribe, please do, so you can take action and execute. See you tomorrow.